So welcome back to the inside of my head, where it's big flappy lizard fighting time. Go! In the one corner, we have the Monsterverses' grumpy lava pterodactyl Rodan, bowing only to the king of the monsters himself, whoever that happens to be at the time. He lives in a volcano, he farts firestorms, he shits magma. He is going to be one titanic obstacle for the new upstart in the opposing corner, Otachi, the only Pacific Rim kaiju seen so far that's capable of flight, the only kaiju so far who's got one in the oven. This winged beast brings annihilation from the antiverse, destruction from the depths. She spits acid. She drinks the tears of entire civilizations. Let's get ready to rumble! Before we begin, make sure you hit like on the video and subscribe if you haven't already, and get in the comments and let me know if there's a matchup that you want to see. Let's start by looking at Rodan. Now, Rodan first appeared as early as 1956, but for the purposes of this video, we're going with Titanus Rodan from the Monsterverse, as seen in 2019's King of the Monsters. Gotta keep it current, you know what I'm saying? Hailing from Isla de Mara off the coast of Mexico, Rodan is 154 foot tall with a weight of just under 40,000 tons. Just for perspective, Godzilla at this stage weighed 100,000 tons and Ghidorah 140,000 tons, if memory serves. This incarnation of Rodan had a wingspan of 871 foot across, which apparently made it the largest in terms of wingspan of any version of Rodan, but also the shortest height-wise, but also the heaviest. Little plumpy Rodan. Contrast this with Otachi, a Category 4 bioweapon that's one of the largest and heaviest in its class. It's taller than Rodan at 207 foot tall, which I'm guessing is when it's standing on its rear legs. I couldn't find much info on her wingspan, so I'm gonna go ahead and guesstimate it for myself. So if it's 207 foot tall and that's the scale we're dealing with here, we can work out that its wingspan is just under about 3 1/3 times its height, which puts it at roughly 700 feet across. Now this is based on this model that I found. I don't know if it's an official model or what. I haven't been through the movie to try and find a frame to work this out with because, to be honest, the fucking monsters often change in size between shots anyway. But based on these estimates, Otachi is taller, but Rodan has the greater wingspan. So the next comparable metric would be weight, but as I discussed in my Godzilla vs Pacific Rim Kaiju video, weight, as important a metric as it is, doesn't really help us out much because the Pacific Rim Kaiju are written up as being so much lighter than their Monsterverse counterparts, with Otachi's official figure being 2,690 tons. A few of you guys said that this is because the Pacific Rim Kaiju are made from alien materials, so can be just as strong without having to carry the same bulk, which I guess would help them be more agile and maneuverable. And there is a logic to that for sure, but if that's the logic you're going to follow, it doesn't change the fact that weight is what it is. So if the Monsterverse Titans did manage to get hold of a Pacific Rim Kaiju, it could just toss it. So if you want to go by those official figures, I reckon Rodan bulldozes Otachi one way or another. Otachi, even if it is made of some kind of alien material and is just as strong as Rodan, will eventually take a hit that will just send it spinning. Personally though, I tend to think that these Pacific Rim weight figures are kind of messed up. So for the purposes of this matchup, I'm going to guesstimate Otachi's weight based on a creature of this size, if it were in the Monsterverse, would probably be vaguely comparable to Rodan. My gut says that Rodan would still weigh a little more somehow. Again, just a gut feeling. But in an aerial battle, is more mass that beneficial anyway? Does it not make Rodan more cumbersome and less nimble in the air and therefore an easier target to hit? Well, it doesn't seem so when you see Rodan doing shit like this. It can also fly at supersonic speeds, which I don't think Otachi can. In addition to which, it can use those wings to instigate supersonic blasts, which can lay waste to entire cities. It only took Rodan 1 or 2 flaps of her wings to get herself into the air and moving quickly. Whereas Otachi felt more lumbersome and like she had to put more effort into hoisting herself up. So I think in terms of agility and acceleration and things like that, Rodan takes it, at least based on what we saw, which admittedly wasn't that much from Otachi. All she did was hoist Gypsy into the air. There's something to be said for that too, because the payload that she can carry is immense. But for that to come into effect, she's going to have to knock Rodan out in the first place, which I don't think is going to be that easy in the air. Anyway, let's talk about offensive capabilities. Rodan has a razor-sharp beak and massive crushing talons, but Otachi has a mouthful of teeth and powerful jaws, which are equivalent or even stronger than what Rodan's got. Otachi has 2 proper and robust arms too, at least before she unfurls the wings, whereas Rodan's are longer and whilst much more fragile looking, would give him great reach to scratch with those hand claws. I don't think any damage inflicted by these little hands is going to trouble Otachi too much though. Dainty little ticklers! As well as that, Otachi has this thing, a formidable weaponized tail that can club and bludgeon or open into a bladed claw with tons of raw crushing power. And on top of all of this, it has a jaw that splits in 2 to reveal its acid sac from which it can spew highly corrosive fluid that can eat into steel, concrete, flesh, and bone. Not my bone. But Rodan, being biovolcanic, is pretty damn durable, being able to literally swim through rivers of magma. But can you see him being able to resist this? I think as long as he didn't get it in any sensitive areas like eyes, nostrils, and his mouth, he might be able to resist for a while, but I think this would sear through eventually, and Rodan will feel it. If he did get it in his eyes, he's fucked. I did wonder what the evaporation point of Otachi's acid is though, because it's not out of the realm of possibility that with Rodan's surface temperature being as high as it is, the acid might boil off before it cuts through the outer layers of epidermis. I think it's a long shot though. But I think that overall, Otachi has the advantage in terms of offense. I'm okay. But as I said, Rodan is pretty resilient. He took a huge blast from Ghidorah's gravity beam, admittedly knocking him out cold and into the sea, but in the next scene he's back with no lasting damage. The fact that Mothra stabbed him with her stinger definitely gave him something to think about, but again, he was back a matter of minutes later with no evidence of lasting damage. So I think the battle would start in the air with the 2 coming together on equal footing. Remember, there's no outside influences here, just one-on-one combat. I think at first, Rodan can outfly Otachi, swooping around her and using its great flight speed and acceleration to get better positioning for its attacks, swooping in and raking open Otachi's skin with those enormous talons before flying away again. It's kind of hit and run tactics as Rodan does not allow itself to get grabbed at this stage. Strikes, moves on. If Otachi did manage to grab hold and dig in with its powerful appendages, I can see Rodan pulling a barrel roll and sending the cat force spinning away. As Otachi is plummeting through the clouds, Rodan would dive, gaining as much speed as possible before opening its wings as wide as possible to create the largest supersonic wake, flying past the still disorientated Otachi and churning her in the swells of wind and turbulence, and sending her crashing to the ground, taking out an old people's home, a hospital, a school, a refuge for cute kittens. These 2 give no fucks about these ant-like shaved apes beneath them. No fucks whatsoever! As Otachi is still trying to get to her feet, it's here that Rodan, that arrogant bastard that he is, full of self-belief and confidence and arrogance, thinking his enemy is on his last legs, lands on Otachi and is about to go in for the glory kill to rip open its jugular with its beak when Otachi's tail swings around, puncturing a huge hole in its chest and ripping out a fistful of guts and gizzard. That's right, that's what I said, gizzards! It's definitely a survivable wound for this guy, but it's here that Rodan realizes how much he done fucked up by landing, because Otachi rears up and the ground grapple begins. The blows are traded and I cannot see any way out for Rodan at this stage. He would try and take to the sky again, but gets hauled back down and slammed into the ground. Take a face full of planet Earth, you beaky motherfucker! Still dazed, Rodan feels Otachi's hands grasping around its face, holding its eyes wide open, vomiting gallons and gallons of neon blue acid into its eyes! Before reaching into its mouth, ripping out its tongue, dropping its writhing and twitching carcass and stomping its skull into the dark. Otachi wins. A little bruised, a little battered, but no big deal. I've got a civilization to fuck up and some ant-sized shaved apes' lives to ruin. She stomps slowly away into the sunset, flattening an orphanage out of sheer petulance as she walks into the sunset to the sound of wailing human children to find a quiet corner to give birth to a baby killing machine. So in conclusion, I think Rodan wins the aerial battle, but this guy's slightly dubious character traits and general untrustworthiness is always going to come back and bite him in the ass one way or another, and you can definitely imagine this one being prone to the odd tactical miscalculation. And in most ground situations, Otachi takes the biscuit of victory, to dunk in the tea of glory. Let's leave it there for now, guys. Let me know if I've forgotten anything, and let me know which robot or kaiju face-off you'd like to see. And until then, let me invite you to get out of my head, and I will see you very soon for the next one. Thank you very much for watching, and cheerio, bye.